Yeah, absolutely thrilling arrival of Isaac del Toro, and it's important to note, like you said, Bob. This is a breakout performance. He is in the headlines on the international stage, but for fans who are not following the sport as closely, it didn't come out of nowhere either.
But he still has 2 weeks of racing, Brent, to not fall down, and that's always been the Achilles heel. So. In Italy, the roads are so treacherous all the time. It seems like it just exponentially makes it more difficult for Primož Roglič to be at his best throughout the 3 weeks. Welcome everybody to another episode of Beyond the Podium. I am Bob Roll. We're going to be talking about the Giro d'Italia and a new leader after the first rest day, which is today. The first time ever a Mexican has led the Giro d'Italia, and that is Isaac del Toro. Write his name down. He's going to be making headlines for a long time to come. Hi, everybody. I'm joined with Brent Bookwalter. Brent, how the heck are you? Where are you?
Good to see you, Bob. Happy to be here with you. I'm at home over in Black Mountain, North Carolina. Had a late arrival from Alabama last night. I was down there for the Cheehaw Challenge Grand Fondo, helping an old college roomie with that event. So yeah, I'm a little weary-eyed and red-eyed from the late arrival.
What's the Cheehaw Challenge? Doesn't sound like a bike event, but
the Cheehaw Challenge is one of America's longest-running Grand Fondos. It's a 33rd year they've done it. It's wow. Classic Grand Fondo style, like. Yeah, 20-mile ride, 80-mile ride, 100-mile ride. Yeah, good time down there, just outside of Anniston, Alabama. And yeah, one of those events that I've enjoyed checking out.
I haven't gotten the invite. What the heck?
I don't know if they can afford you, Bob. They're starting with me, and then they're going to work their way up. We'll try to get the full A team there next year. So
yeah, the Spondoolies. Yeah. I just need a cup of coffee.
Bob, I really enjoyed the show that you and Christian did last week. That was good. I was actually listening to that on the drive back from Alabama yesterday to kind of get me back in Beyond the Podium mode, get caught up on that first weekend of the Giro, and yeah, get me in the mood. But I love the back and forth, the banter that you and Van de Velde had. Particularly, I didn't realize the Giro was your first ever pro race. I mean. Yeah. The Giro was my first Grand Tour, but the idea of rocking up to this race as your first pro race was mind blowing. And I guess not mind blowing that you survived it, you persevered. That didn't like knock you out and end you before you even started. But man, I mean, watching the Giro once again this year, like just the insanity of these stages, the Italian roads, the fans, the tifosi, like what a way to start your pro cycling career. So. Like throw us a little more of that, because you didn't get that into it with Van de Velde. He went off the rails on the Jersey and the Descent Castelli collaboration, and that was a good story too. But tell me about that first pro race ever at the Giro.
Yeah, in those days there was amateur racing and there's professional racing, and there's not the sort of same exposure that the riders get now. Like Isaac del Toro he's like 22 years old. Tadej Pogacar, we saw him win the Tour at 21, 22 years of age. So. Guys tended to turn pro later, at least older, and also you had amateur racing, especially for Americans. There was a big American scene, and then there was European racing. And Greg LeMond, Mike Neal, George Mount, some of the very few Americans that had ever done any pro races in Europe. And the 7-Eleven team decided, after dominating, I don't know if I've told this story before, but when 7-Eleven would show up at a race in the States, it was over. The first 5 places were up the road. So they decided, they would go to Europe and see if they could replicate some of the same successes. And Mike Neal was one of the first pro Americans, and he raced in Italy. So he knew a lot about Italy. So I think the team, early on anyways, sort of had a focus on Italian racing, and that co-sponsor, Hunved, that I mentioned when Christian produced the jersey from 1985, was an Italian company. And so we raced in Italy a lot. And they asked me on Tuesday to start the Giro on Friday, and I was in San Francisco, California at the time.
What?
So they said, yeah, you have to go to the airport if you want to do the Giro. There's a ticket waiting for you. So
That's
I got a
nuts.
ride. I know, completely bananas. They had a bike. They had all the Castelli descent kit. All I had to do was bring my shoes and my pillow. So I was like, all right, I can manage that. Went to the airport, got there on Wednesday, and started the Giro on Friday. And it was insane. It was completely insane. We started in Verona. We took a team photo in front of the Coliseum there, which I still have a copy of that. It's very cool. And then we did a prologue, and I went as hard as I could go and got annihilated. I think there was 220 starters also, so it took all day
Big
to do
field.
the prologue. Yeah, huge field. Then we had the first road race, and it was a circuit in the area, and it was like I was the last guy all day, 200 plus kilometers. And we had a team time trial that went a little bit better because there was only 9 other guys. And then I think we had 27 stages. We had split stages. We had
27 stages.
Yeah, we had days where there would be 2 stages. We had one day, I think there was 3 stages, and they were each 75 kilometers long. And we literally sat by the side of the road before the next stage
That is the
started.
worst thing ever.
I was like, oh. And we had long transfers by train, sometimes like it was the turn of the previous century. It was totally insane. The food was great. And it just, for me, what was most shocking is how packed in the riders were. And I was like, oh no, no way. Like, you're getting bumped all day long, which hasn't changed. It's even intensified. And so I would get shuffled to the back like all day, every day. And I would just sit at the back and wait for the splits. Then I could go a little bit easier. And the mountains were insane. Bernardino had a big battle that year with Francesco Moser. And so they were duking it out. Greg LeMond was there, and he was riding really well. He was already a certified superhero, a star of perfect. He hadn't won the Tour yet, but he had already won a lot of big races. So it was nice to have somebody
Legendary stuff, Bob.
Yeah, that was in the front duking it out with the very best. And
oh yeah. And this is classic, like, don't make them like they used to kind of stuff. I mean, the kids and they're riding the Giro now, if they haven't done their history and they haven't done their homework. I mean, I did the Giro multiple times, and yeah, I knew a little bit about the gloried romantic days of the Giro that you're describing, but not to this level. 3 stages in a day, 27 stages, sitting on the side of the road between stages. But that, I also remember seeing pictures and hearing stories from other riders of this time. This is also the time when you would like get a gelato mid-stage, or you would, I don't know, like roll through someone's hometown and like they'd have cake from the local bakery for everyone in the peloton. And those days are long gone too. So it definitely sounds like one of these, take the good with the craziness sort of dynamics.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I said, the food was fantastic. So the first couple of weeks I put on a few pounds, actually, which is not easy to do in a Grand Tour. But if we talked about this in passing over the years doing the Giro, and we both absolutely love it. I think you told me you did 5 Giros during your career, Brent. That is impressive. 5 Giro d'Italias. Just imagine how many tiny roads, how much traffic furniture, how many big mountains. In 5 years, that is a whole big chunk of your lifetime.
Yeah, everyone feels like a lifetime of racing all packed into 3 weeks, and then you just do it again the next year. But my sentiment and love for it echoes yours, in that it was my favorite Grand Tour to ride and feel the energy of the country and the fans. Just felt so authentically Italian, whereas the Tour de France, enough said, but such an international cultural phenomena. Sometimes the cycling purity gets a little lost and drowned out by just the magnitude of the cultural and world sport phenomena that it is. So, man, Bob, those are some story days and Giro stories. I feel like we need a whole separate Beyond the Podium offshoot, which is Bob Roll reflections on the Peloton, which I know you've done in a lot of your writing, but I always enjoy going down memory lane with you.
Well, we did come away with 2 stage wins, so it wasn't a total disaster. Ron Kiefel and Andy Hampson both got stage wins, but
that's respect. Yeah, that's big respect for rocking up. Yeah, just coming out of nowhere, coming out of San Francisco a few days before. I mean, these days, no one would even dream of going to the Giro unless you've done minimum 4 weeks of altitude camps, 15 days of racing, wind tunnel testing. I mean, yeah, times have changed.
Times have changed for the better for the young racers. That's why they're a lot faster. Anyways, Sunday, the gravel. Now, we saw a gravel stage in the Tour de France last year. I thought it was the best stage of last year's Tour de France. There's a big one-day classic in the same region of Italy called Strade Bianche. The white roads is the literal translation. So gravel roads. And Strade Bianche is one of the most chaotic races. It was the best day of racing up until yesterday's stage of the Giro. Best day of racing in this year's entire calendar, in my opinion, so far. So many stories to tell throughout every single group on the road. I absolutely loved yesterday's stage. And big shakeup to the GC and redemption for Wout van Aert. What did you think about the gravel stage of this year's Giro, Brent?
I loved it, Bob. I'm totally sold. As actually this weekend, some folks down at the event I was at in Alabama were asking me, if you had to pick a favorite race, what was it? And of course, I got special places in my heart for all the U.S. races. We didn't get to race in the U.S. a lot, but that is immediately where I went. Strade Bianche in Tuscany. That was my favorite, most memorable racing experience from all the international race calendar of my entire career. There's something just, so unique and magical, charming, and also just brutally relentless about those gravel Tuscan roads. One of the reasons I love it is that, I think way back in your days, you guys were racing on some unpaved, crazy, more adventurous surfaces and passes that maybe wouldn't fly normal road racing standards now. But when we look at Strade Bianche, that one-day classic, and the inclusion of specifically these sectors in the Giro d'Italia since I believe it was 2010, which was my first Giro, that it's kind of new. It's kind of modern cycling. It's like almost like bringing back the past, like inserting it into modern cycling. I love Strade Bianche because the first time I went there, also in 2010, the Italians, even the home Italians and the Europeans, were kind of scratching their head like, how do we do this? Like, where does the final start? Like, what wheels are we riding? Like, and I was like, all right, this is kind of an equalizer now. Like, we're all kind of figuring out this new, like, hopefully soon to be one-day classic. And for me, I really grew, my career progressed as that race progressed and evolved. And for me, it culminated with one of my career one-day finishes at Strade Bianche in 2020. So a lot of love for that race, but I've also experienced the suffocating dust and gravel in the caravan, blown up wheels, shredded skin. The year we had massive crosswinds, and there's riders literally getting blown through the Tuscan countryside, trying to change wheels, and wheels ending up 5 miles off into the fields. The wind just took it. It is dramatic, beautiful racing, and I love it in the Giro d'Italia. Absolutely. I agree with you that yesterday was probably, one of the best days of racing of the 2025 racing calendar. And it didn't disappoint in action. We had a GC shakeup. We had a super exciting, thrilling, redemptive stage win with Wout van Aert, which I love to see the emotion of that came out of him. And it thickened and twisted the GC plot. But what I love is it didn't totally end it. There's always this constant debate about, is it too much? Should we have this stage in Grand Tours? And we can talk more about this later, but I love that. Primož Roglič, probably the big loser of the GC guys of the day. He unfortunately did lose some time, but he's still in the mix. No one is totally out of there. We still have a really exciting GC race. So I feel like we got it all. The Giro organizers, they got it all sorts of storylines and drama, which the Giro loves and is plastered all over the newspapers today, and a lot to unpack too as we go through all the different facets of yesterday.
I want to ask you a question. Were you one of the guys that piled on Wout van Aert for the months between wins when we're so accustomed to see him? I wasn't. I will promise you that. I said to everybody who would ask me, which was just about everybody I know, what's with Wout? I'm like, don't worry, he'll be back. But were you one of those guys that was kind of like, he's had a good run. It's been great. I love Wout, but
I would say I was a little more like that, I think, during last year's tour. I think this year I've appreciated Wout this year because we've seen how much it's meant to him and some of the things he said and the emotion that he's displaying. He wants it really bad. Like you can see that he doesn't have that almost we've seen him in history have nearly win on demand command of his body and the peloton. It's very clear the past 12 24 months that is not the reality, that sort of magic wand that he had that he could just wave and drop everyone, whether it climb or sprint. Those were awesome days to watch, but times are changing and times change quick in the pro peloton. And he's had to sort of still find a way to like muster that motivation. And he hasn't given up, despite having a lot of close seconds, knocking on the door, being so close. He's answered those calls and come back. And I got to admit, yesterday when they were climbing up to Siena, I was holding my breath thinking like, I think he can do it. But if he doesn't, I don't know. That might be, then we might shift into like, it's been nice to know you. Wow. Like, I feel like it was really building up. It was a culmination of like, it's all on the line now. And I love to read some of those finish line quotes about the significance of even Siena and the Tuscan gravel roads, that the kind of intertwined nature of those gravel roads with his cyclocross career, the success he's had at Strada Bianca early in his career. There's a lot of meaning. When he was climbing up to Siena yesterday, it wasn't just stage 9 of the 2025 Giro. It was all that meaning, that really that culmination, going back into the depths of his history and his experience as a cyclist, and really producing another one of those magical, emotional filled performances.
And for his team, that's got to be absolutely massive for the Visma squad that have believed in him, even when it was some very lean times recently. I think that that's a testament to the squad, why they've been so successful. And maybe this will be the catalyst. We'll light the fire under those guys and see them back crushing like UAE does nowadays on a much more regular basis.
Yeah, and they have all the tools. That team is a stacked squad, and yeah, sometimes that's all it takes is one sort of just like momentum ramp, and you could see that watching the video, the onboard camera of the Wout van Aert's team car yesterday, and when they were coming across the line. We always see these directors and mechanics going nuts, but there was definitely a palpable like emotion, just explosion of like relief, and that like we got one, we did it, like we're back. And I think that team's looking good. Simon Yates is also still like right point there, lurking, sneaky Simon Yates style, like pretty quiet, pretty no drama. And I think he'll be looking to week 3 where as the cliche goes, like it's seconds and small minutes in the first 2 weeks and then big chunks of minutes in the third week.
Well, UAE has 4 guys in the top 10. That's very impressive. But I think the most impressive has been Isaac del Toro, from Ensenada, of all places, and now on the top of the cycling world. He won Tour de l'Avenir. He got a big one-day race earlier this spring. This guy is going places in a hurry. It's going to be awesome to see how the Giro goes, but his career unfolding. He reminds me a lot of my teammate, Raul Alcala. And I think he's the first Mexican ever to lead any Grand Tour in the history of cycling. So, I mean, congratulations. And I can't wait to watch Isaac del Toro in the rest of this Giro.
Yeah, absolutely thrilling arrival of Isaac del Toro. And it's important, to note, like you said, Bob, this is a breakout performance. He is in the headlines on the international stage. But for fans who are not following the sport as closely, it didn't come out of nowhere either. You mentioned the Tour de l'Avenir. that is the star, that is the race that predicts and crowns the stars of the future. It's the mini young rider Tour de France. So the fact that he won that is like, okay, you know, that went a long way to get him into this super stacked UAE squad. And as you also mentioned, he's already notching up GC wins. I believe he won the Vuelta a Asturias. But he is relatively inexperienced in the Grand Tours, and rightfully so. He's you know, very young. So definitely uncharted territory up there in the GC mix at the Giro, wearing the pink jersey. And I think his quotes, the team's feedback, you know, considering their leader, Juan Ayuso, and also their sort of co-leader at Adam Yates, I think that's definitely still the plan. And the media is so quick to go to like a rider like Del Toro's into the pink jersey after a stunning ride. They immediately want to know, like, are you the leader now? Let's make some drama. Let's talk about the infighting. But like, whoa. Let's just sit back. Let's look at that epic ride from Del Toro on Sunday. You know, up there battling with Wout van Aert, making all the selections, really handy, skilled riding over the gravel sectors as well. Let's enjoy this pink jersey for this star of the future. The Giro is going to play out. A lot is going to happen in these next 2 weeks. We're going to learn a lot tomorrow in that time trial. The Giro always also, it does produce a surprise or two, someone that sort of like pops into the GC equation that maybe we wouldn't have said, you know, a week or two out from the race. So likely Del Toro is that guy or one of those guys. But I still do believe that Juan Ayuso is their man for the pink and the GC overall.
Well, the top 10 after yesterday's stage, a lot of characters, a lot of familiar names, a lot of guys we didn't perhaps expect to be there after the first basically half of the race. But one of the biggest and most heartwarming surprises for me is Egan Bernal and how well he's ridden. Winner of the Giro, winner of the Tour de France, and Egan Bernal on the comeback trail after a life-threatening crash a couple of years ago. Look as good as I've seen him in a long time on the biggest stage in yesterday's stage. I love seeing Egan Bernal. He seemed to be the strongest. I think he might have miscalculated his nutrition a little bit, went a little bit too deep and came unstitched slightly in the closing miles. But that was a great ride by Egan Bernal, and I hope that it means more to come from the Colombian star.
Yeah, I agree, Bob. This is inspiring stuff for Bernal. Like, once again, this is a multiple-time Grand Tour champion from a few years ago that has a life-threatening nearly career-ending injury. To see this tenacity and this testament of character in the slow process back, the commitment from his team. And he really is, in a lot of this is the best Bernal we've seen since then. And it hasn't just been like, it's not like he's been like on the floor and then he's just all of a sudden risen up at the Giro. The guy has been grinding back up. And, you know, that grind from a champion like Bernal is not it's not a foregone conclusion. You know, these winners, sometimes if they're not winning, they pack up, they move on. But Bernal he's still at it. And it was so good to see him at the front of the race and really, like, once again at home on these demanding roads of Tuscany. Like, we've seen him ride really well at Strada Bianca. We saw him the year he won the Giro, also doing a really solid ride on the gravel stage, taking some time back. So I love that he had the confidence in himself and his skills. The team had the belief in him to also race aggressively, push it on. I mean, we heard in the finish line quotes from Bernal. Yeah, the plan was pretty simple. Get to the first gravel sector, ride as hard as we can. And that's what those images were. It wasn't just, you know, the last 20K of those guys biting down on the bit. It was the last, you know, 40, 50K. It was a big hit out. And yeah, came up just a little bit short of the end, but rest day in the bank today, big TT tomorrow. And I think we're going to keep seeing Bernal coming through some gutsy rides the next couple of weeks. Well, we're on the GC picture surprise here, Bob. I got to throw a bone to our buddy TJ Van Garderen. We were talking before the Giro, and we were talking about dark horses, someone to pick and throw into that GC mix. He said Antonio Tiberi, and our producer Joel was even in our ear going, "What? Tiberi? He's not riding podium at the Giro." And that's where he is now. He's sitting third overall. So, TJ's hard at work at the Giro in the team car right now for his team, but we got to just, give the boy some credit where credit's due. And Tiberi also channeling that Italian passion and flair and riding a really strong third overall as well.
Well, the cat lovers of the world will hope that Tiberi starts to move further down. Did you hear that story of a couple of years ago? He killed his neighbor's cat.
No. Whoa.
Who happened to be the mayor. And he
cat killer
said he was sighting in his BB gun. And I think he had a lot of civic penalties and criminal penalties. He might have even been suspended by his team for a period of time. That part I don't remember. So, but a very strong bike racer. The Italians need a big GC guy. So perhaps Antonio Tiberi, and hopefully he's contrite about doing that. And having lived in Italy, and the town I lived in was called Brunate. It's on the top of a mountain above Como, and there was wild cats everywhere. So I just decided that I'm either going to never sleep again or just let the cats do their thing all night long, and it would be like a lullaby, a beautiful symphony of natural sound. So I could get back to sleep. But anyways, that's a sidebar. Let's forget about that. What I like is this top 10. Let's go over the top 10 real quick. Del Toro, Ayuso, Tiberi, Carapaz. I thought when you mentioned TJ, he was going to talk about Carapaz. Ciccone.
Well, nicely done.
Bernal, McNulty, Adam Yates, and Primož Roglič. What I love about the rest of this Giro is all those guys still have a chance to win. I mean, for me, maybe the biggest surprise is how well Isaac del Toro has been racing as a fairly new professional. He must have an incredible talent. And like I've been saying a couple of times before, we're going to see a lot from him in the future, but maybe that starts now. And maybe he is a hot favorite. You said throttle it back a little bit, but we'll see. If he goes ham-bone a couple more times and gets already over a minute beside his own teammate, who knows?
Absolutely. I mean, he's in the GC equation now, a minute over, 2 minutes over some of the other best GC riders in the world. That Del Toro for sure, big surprise. For me, the biggest surprise is probably Primož Roglič on the other end of that top 10, down in 10th place, 2 minutes, 25 seconds back. That, considering how we saw him open up the race, even going back to, watching, catching up with that show that you and Christian did a week ago now. At that point in time, just 7 days ago, it was all Roglič all the time. Like, look out. Lots of analogies for, classic Roglič, sharpening the knife, sharpening the legs. The altitude, monking out at the altitude camps has served him well. And he's been super at the Giro so far. And it's important to note that yesterday was not an indication of poor form, bad legs, poor team. They've had a big hit losing Jai Hindley. Yesterday was purely one of these chalk it up to bad luck, poor luck, a crash and a puncture, really piling it on, putting Roglič and his team under pressure. But I love that, considering all that drama and considering the shots we saw of him during the race, you couldn't even see him. That I think maybe you could glance at the number and they'd put his name on the bottom of the screen, but the dude was riding in a massive dust storm in the caravan for a good chunk of the final of that race. To lose as little time as he did is actually a really good, tenacious show of perseverance. And he's still in the mix. We're going to learn a lot more tomorrow already. Nice long time trial. See if he can claw back a little time there. But Primož Roglič, not out of the GC mix, but he is, obviously no GC rider wants to be, 2 minutes down. But, you look at, as we were just talking, Del Toro has a minute over his teammate Juan Ayuso. So that means Roglič is essentially within that minute marker of all the other GC guys, which is very much still alive and well in this Giro. And one other thing to consider is, Roglič, Red Bull, Bora Hansgrohe, they came to this Giro to win. I truly believe that they still believe Roglič can do it. Their odds have gone against them a little bit. But to do that now, they are going to have to apply some pressure. They're going to have to look for their moment, look for their moment of weakness from their competitors, and then really, really pile it on. And that has the potential also to open up the race in different portions of the race, aggressive racing from Roglič. I mean, that's a scary competitor when he starts thinking the dude is not here to ride top 10 at the Giro. He's here to win. When we start thinking about this idea of a guy like Primož Roglič and a team as deep as Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe not having anything to lose, we stand a chance to see some very aggressive, unscripted racing, which historically has flipped the Giro on its head in the third week or even the final couple days.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think Primož Roglič is out of it by any stretch of the imagination. And I still think in those top 10 riders, looking at the rest of the Giro, especially considering the time trial and how well he is riding against the clock, I don't want to say he's the hot favorite anymore, like he seemed to be after the first weekend, but he certainly is not out of it. But he still has 2 weeks of racing, Brent, to not fall down. And that's always been the Achilles heel. So in Italy, the roads are so treacherous all the time. It seems like it just exponentially makes it more difficult for Primož Roglič to be at his best throughout the 3 weeks. Fingers crossed he gets through the rest of it safely. And we see the Roglič that we've seen year in and year out, including, by the way, the previous Grand Tour to this one, the Tour of Spain. Seems like a lifetime ago, but he didn't get the leader's jersey until the last couple of days because he maybe miscalculated Ben O'Connor's abilities and gave him that big 5+ minutes advantage at the end of one stage. So took him the rest of the Vuelta to chip away at that. And maybe where he is the best news possible for Red Bull. Maybe the time is not the best news, but the position maybe is more ideal for Primož Roglič, all things considered, at this point in the race.
I think there's something there, and that even goes along with their sort of strategy and tactic and how they were working, late in the first week when they sort of said like, wow, the pink is nice right now, but it's not a priority to keep it. We don't plan to ride the front every stage from now all the way to stage 21. So yeah, when you consider that, I think 10th place is still in the mix, and there's a lot of road, and that there's all this other team. We have Bahrain victorious now. We have EF Education Easy Post. We have Lidl Trek. We have Visma Lease Bike. We have Ineos. All these other teams, they're also playing for the podium. They're still believing that they have a chance to win, and it's especially considering Red Bull Bora-Hansgrohe lost Jai Hindley, it's not bad that there are some other teams in the mix to also kind of go up against this super UAE team that, 4 riders in the top 10. We talk time and time again about the depth of UAE, their payroll of this hit squad that they have. Ultimately, I think it's going to take a collective, the world versus UAE to unseat and crack this team open. So maybe Primož Roglič having some allies in some of those other teams. But we'll see. While we're on the dominance of UAE, we also got to shout out our USA homeboy Brandon McNulty. Yes. Once again, like I love the selflessness of Brandon. He is committed to that team, and he's still riding top 10 overall at the Giro, bouncing back from a couple hard hits the first week, but definitely proudly flying that American flag. And like every time I see him turn up on the front, I'm like, also, fist bump in the air a little bit. Yeah. Come on, our boy Brandon, looking good.
And in the top 10 or even the top 20 or anybody in the Giro, who is now, in your estimation, the hot favorite to win in 2 weeks' time?
I think now, seeing what we're looking at, I think Juan Ayuso is in the driver's seat in terms of the overall win. Woo! What do you think?
I'm sticking with Roglič.
You're going for the comeback. I love it.
He's close enough to Ayuso. And I might be, regretting, but that means everything to Red Bull, and it's been a pretty lean season so far for that squad. So, and I think that looking at everybody's pedigree and the rest of the race course, I think that Primož is close enough, and if you give him a chance in the last few days, it's he comes through. And I mean, obviously, Jonas Vingegaard and last year's Giro winner Tadej Pogačar are not in this year's Giro. So I'm going to still stick with Primož for the win. But Brent, thanks a million. We'll go out on tour. We'll do a speaking tour of our Giro stories, and so we'll curate all of
I love it. Let's line it up.
I think that would be pretty entertaining. Or we could collaborate on a book maybe with somebody. If you line it up, I'm certain I could answer the phone and tell the stories. But thanks a lot, and I can't wait for the next couple of weeks of the Giro. Thanks, Brent.
I enjoyed it, Bob. Thank you.
For all your cycling content year-round, subscribe to NBC Sports YouTube page. We got it all.